Yeah, I'm emotional, but it's kind of difficult because we still have a season to play. You know, it might be different if it was the end of the year, but right now, yeah, I have feelings. You know what I'm saying? It's not, I'm not emotionally stunted. You know what I'm saying? I know it. You know, there's feelings there, but yeah, I think I've just been pretty good at trying to hide my emotions throughout the years. I try to have the same demeanor each and every day.
That's about as revealing as it got here from the Yankee captain, Derek Jeter, as he announced, as you know, last week that, in fact, this would be his final season. Let's bring in our panel here. And, of course, we're talking about Dominic Carter and Andrew Whitman. And, guys, listen, I will say for Yankee fans, and somebody said it really well, and I wish I could source who it is, part of what Derek Jeter's appeal was, of course, that he performed on the biggest stages and the biggest moments, but he never let people down. There was no terrible off-the-field incident. There was no steroid stupidity. There was none of that. And even, I know you're an Oriole fan or you're a Met fan, it was hard to root against the guy unless he was playing your team. But more than that, you know, he was the one argument that he was a homegrown guy. Sure, he made $20 million a year for a long time and all that, but he did it the right way. And if you wanted to hold out the Yankee mythic thing, he was one of the few guys that could help the argument along. It's going to be tough as a Yankee fan when you don't have that. Then it's just mercenaries wearing the uniform.
I've seen a comparison of Derek Jeter to Joe DiMaggio, not just in terms of being a Yankee legend, but also in terms of limiting the exposure.
Yeah.
Joe DiMaggio never gave you a lot publicly. He was always very protective of his image. To his dying day, he was very protective of his image. And there's been a lot of that with Derek Jeter. It's going to be fascinating, I think, this final season to see if he lets a little more of himself out. If we see the Derek Jeter we saw in that press conference today, more of that than we've seen over the last year. But even there,
he was really contained, and he wouldn't let a lot out.
Right, he's
and
not at all.
I don't know.
That's who he is.
Right, but I think that might have been some of his appeal. People liked the fact that he was going out with the starlets and whatever, but you didn't hear the whole story. He wasn't Joe Namath where he laid it all out there. Sure, you got to perform, but you know, he was never the back page scandal guy, you know?
His private life was private, which is the way it ought to be. And his public life, we all lived in that in terms of watching Derek Jeter. Yeah. There's no other way to say it. Derek Jeter is the man. Yeah, Derek Jeter is the man.
I can't think of a guy, I mean, for Ranger fans, Mark Messier in that window of time when he made the guarantee and they delivered. Obviously, Joe Namath, you know, with the Super Bowl. But you've had pockets of athletic heroes with the LTs here and there and stuff, but there was always something that went along with it. Or that the career had different chapters, but never the continuing thing like Jeter did.
I had one with Cal Ripken because he was, every time you needed him to perform, he performed. He had a home run in the All-Star game. He had a home run in his, in his final All-Star appearance. He broke the record and he hit the home run. I was at the game that he tied Lou Gehrig and he hit a home run that day. I mean, he always seemed to rise to the occasion. Except maybe in the playoffs. But
always a good guy, too.
Always a good guy, too.
And never let you down. Okay, now, not every day we can say this in sports, but today all eyes were on hockey. Host nation Russia, which had pinned its biggest hopes on the success of its hockey squad, was eliminated today, losing 3-1 to Finland in the quarterfinals. That means no medals. Forget about the gold. No medals whatsoever here. But a much different story for the U.S. today, and there you saw Mr. Putin not too happy. The American squad knocked out the Czech Republic 5-2 and will now face Canada in the semifinals on Friday. You can argue that that game being a rematch of the 2010 gold medal game will have the two best teams fighting it out here. But, hey, listen, even if you're a casual hockey fan, this stuff is as compelling as anything you're going to see on ice.
It's great to watch. It's really different because I'm a vested hockey fan, and I root for the Washington Capitals, and you root for your team. And I've got players from my team on the U.S. squad, on the Canadian squad, on the Czech squad, on the Russian squad. It's difficult. You want your players to do well, but you want everybody to come back okay and not injured.
My Islanders,
John
Tavares, our captain, our best player, he's hurt. We don't know how much, but I will tell you, guys who don't even care about hockey, Dom, and I'm looking at you, but you'll find yourself, I saw my kids watching that shootout with Russia, and they were vested in this. And I'm talking about 7 and 9 and 12-year-olds who couldn't care less, but they were screaming for Oshie like they'd ever heard of the guy before, in the shootout phase. you get really committed. I guess that's the beauty of the Olympics.
Well, Richard, I have a question. Which one of those hockey players with Team USA?
This is gonna be bad. Yeah,
which
go ahead.
one of them is Carmelo Anthony?
Okay, moving on.
You put USA on your jersey, and there is something.
But you know
I
what's
caught you watching a little hockey.
You know what's great about the Olympics? Whether you're into that sport or not, you root for your country.
You do.
And so all I know, I don't know much about hockey, but the 1980 was it 1980 when they won up
definitely don't
in
much about hockey.
right,
Yes,
right,
Miracle
right,
on
right,
Ice, right,
Miracle
yeah.
on Ice. And so you're always hoping for that.
Were you
moment.
watching it at the time?
No.
Oh,
and so
let's just move on here.
Arguably the greatest sports moment of all time.
Absolutely.
Arguably.
the
I know
greatest
where I
sports
was.
moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, sticking. I'm telling you, I'm with him on this one.
It's up there, but not the greatest.
All right. Sticking with the Olympics here. Still a lot of talk about NBC's interview with skier Bodie Miller after Miller won the bronze in the Super G race on Sunday. It doesn't really matter what the event was. The issue was, as a precursor, Bodie Miller had lost his brother tragically in the past year. And he immediately after the race, when it was found out that in fact he would medal, did this interview with an NBC correspondent.
I know you wanted to be here with Chile really experiencing these games, and how much does it mean to you to come up with a great performance for him, and was it for him?
I mean, I don't know if it's really for him, but I wanted to come here and I don't know, I guess make myself proud, but
When you're looking up in the sky at the start, we see you there, and it just looks like you're talking to somebody. What's going on there? Sorry, babe.
Okay, now, a little pretext. She did 4 questions, not just 2. She did 4 questions with Miller. And then when he turned around and he collapsed here emotionally and was crying, they held on him for a camera for a full minute. Now, the point is, they recorded that about 12 hours earlier in the day because you have the time differential. This played in prime time a couple nights ago. People, and I was watching this, I guess, in real time, at least at night, saying, I don't care about the event, or I'm not even too focused, but leave the guy alone. My God, he's crying. And they're hanging on him with a camera. Don, we do this as a business, right? You're supposed to get those emotive moments. It's not her fault. There's the human interest where you try and, make that a memorable moment because nobody even knows what Super G is, most of America, but you wanted to know about the guy's backstory. But you can do that once. You maybe can do that twice. 4 questions, then you hang on them, and you never edit it for prime time. I thought it was overkill by NBC.
Bonehead award goes to that journalist. First of all, we all know what we're doing as journalists. But in her defense, we don't know what the producer was saying in her ear. The producer could have said, stay on the topic. But as journalists, we know how to make someone cry. We know what nerve to hit to make you break down.
And usually you back away. You let the guy have his moment. You do
back
the
away.
pregnant pause. You might hang on it for a second, but then they'll cut away. And Andrew, we do know that Miller, to his credit, defended the reporter saying it wasn't her fault. But to Dominic's point, the bigger culprit, I didn't put on necessarily the reporter because we don't know what she was getting in her IFB. But they didn't edit that, and they played it as is 12 hours later when it was obvious to the naked eye the first time you saw it, ooh, that's too much.
Yeah, I mean, look, they try to market these sports to non-sports audiences. That's why it's in prime time. They spend a lot of money, so they're trying to attract as big an audience as they can. That said, somewhere in the chain, there was somebody, whether it was the reporter or the producer or the executive producer, who was going, yes, we got that. I mean, somebody was celebrating that moment, like there is on a news report when you're talking to somebody who's in tears, when you find the emotion of a story that maybe goes further than the story necessarily needs. There's always somebody celebrating that moment. That's what I find incredibly distasteful.
But Richard, I want to ask a question of you guys. I'm going to be honest. As an EP, I would have definitely have aired that. What you guys have aired it.
I would have cut it back a little bit. I know what your point is. My issue is ratings, okay? Humanity aside, you want the numbers that night, and NBC's gotten great numbers on this. But even if it's for Machiavellian purposes, I say, okay, the whole thing was 4 minutes or whatever, cut it back to 2.5. People want to see the thing online. At least I say to myself, I'll show the tears, I'll show a little bit. But when it got to overkill, I don't need to go there because now I'm inviting criticism like this happened.
Even when covering politics or issues of the day, it's not necessarily the most informational moment that we broadcast, it's the most impactful. That's part of the medium, and that's part of the problem with the medium.
Yep, fair enough. Guys, thank you very much. Now, when we come back, another issue that we've been talking about on this show quite a bit, a proposal by the governor that would educate inmates behind bars here with taxpayer dollars. It's constant controversy, but we've been talking about this issue for many years here. We're going to talk to a principal in a nonprofit who's been doing it in New York City prisons. That conversation straight ahead.